Hi, I'm Gail, and I'm an English conversation teacher working in Chiba, Japan, at a friendly little English conversation school called the English Factory. Whenever I meet people who have become fluent in English or any second language, I always ask them how they did it, and their answers are very helpful to anyone who wants to speak another language. I've decided to start interviewing these people and then sharing their methods with you. Now, I'm very new and very inexperienced at doing interviews, and I don't know how to make well produced YouTube videos with pleasant sounding audio and pretty lighting, with snazzy camera work and seamless editing. But rather than wait until I was good at those things, I decided just to start anyway. So I apologize in advance for all the sucky sound, all the crappy lighting, and the jerky editing. But hopefully, you can overlook my lack of video producing skills in order to get some really important information that will help you reach your goal of mastering either English or any second language. Please enjoy. I'd like to give a very big thank you to the very kind staff at First Ascent Climbing Gym in Arlington, Illinois. They very kindly provided us with a meeting room for this impromptu interview, and we're very grateful. Hi, today I'm going to interview a wonderful young woman named Tina that I met through my son, Jesse, at a wall climbing gym near Chicago, a wonderful place called the First Ascent, and they've been very nice to let us use this wonderful meeting room to do this interview. Both Tina and my son are climbing enthusiasts, and they first met and became friends at college. They both attended Lake Forest College north of Chicago and got their bachelor's degree there. When I first met Tina and I heard how good her English was, I was sure that she either had grown up in America or she was a returner who's studied in American elementary school for maybe 4 or 5 years. But I was very surprised to find out neither of those things were true. So from now, I'm going to introduce you to Tina, and let's hear her story of how she became a fluent English speaker. Hi, Tina.
Hi.
Can you tell us where you're from in Japan?
I'm from a city called Akashi in Hyogo, Japan.
Okay, and what's your Japanese name?
My Japanese name is Ota Tina.
Okay, and you have a new name, right?
Yes.
What's your new name?
My name is Tina Hernandez.
So you got married
Yes.
in America, yeah. So why don't you just give us some background about how you learned English? Were you fluent in English before you came to America for college?
No. Well, I grew up in the countryside in Japan, so I never really had a chance to speak English at all. Neither of my parents speak English, none of my family members speak English, but I started taking English class in middle school because it's a requirement for every middle school in Japan. And I also took a English class in high school.
Did you take any English conversation classes in elementary school or through
No.
high school?
No. English.
Did you ever come to an English-speaking country before
No.
you came to America for college? Really?
Yes.
Wow. So how did you become interested in becoming an English speaker?
So my first introduction was English music. When I was in middle school, my brother recommended me some English songs and that was my first exposure to English. And since I loved singing, I started singing like English songs, try to copy the sounds. I didn't really know what I was singing, but that really got me interested in American culture. And when I got to high school, I really wanted to help people with my life. And I found out that I really wanted to work for United Nations. And to work at the United Nations, I had to speak either English or French fluently. And since I already had some interest in American culture, I wanted to learn English in the US.
When you were using songs to practice English, how did you use them? What was your technique? Because I often tell students, don't use music, don't just listen to English music. So if you can use music, but you have to study the meaning of the words to actually use it to learn how to speak English. You can't just enjoy it. So how did you use music for learning English?
So at the time, I didn't really understand like what the song's about by just listening to them. So I had to look up lyrics, and I will look up the words that I didn't know, so I kind of get the meaning of the song. And after that, I will look at the lyrics and listen to the music, and I would try to sing it as I listen to them.
Oh, okay. I see. How about your high school experience? Did you have good teachers? Did you have a lot of opportunity to practice English with the maybe foreign teachers?
Well, I went to a local public school in Japan, so I didn't really have a great program. Well, I learned basic English, so I was able to read and write English, but I never really had a good program where I could like practice speaking English in high school.
Did you get good grades in English?
Yes, I did.
So you studied very hard for the tests?
Yes, I did.
Do you think that helped you?
I think it helped me to a certain extent where I can understand like a basic English by reading and writing, but for like actually like having a conversation with people, I don't think it helped that much.
Okay. So when did you start to develop your speaking skills?
Well, we actually had one native English speaking English teacher in high school. So I tried to have as much conversation as possible with him.
Okay, so you actually took a lot of initiative to talk to that person, and you made sure that every day you had a chance to speak to the teacher?
Well, especially my senior year, since I already knew that I'm applying to college in the US, so I wanted to practice like during the college interview with him. Well, since he was the only one person that speaks English, like in my community, so I had to like go talk to him to have an opportunity.
I see. What other, how else did you practice? Did you use YouTube or watch movies?
Yes, I used a lot of movies and YouTube videos. Well, I had Amazon Prime accounts at the time, so I watched like most of the Amazon Prime movies, and I also watched a lot of YouTube vlogs.
Well, when you were using the movies, did you just watch them, or did you actually actively study or like research what the people were saying? How did you use the movies to learn to speak English?
Well, I learned that I can learn the language a lot quicker if I knew the meaning or if I understood the context. So I will like, the first time I'm watching a movie, I'll have a Japanese subtitle.
Okay,
And the
well,
next
first
time,
subtitles.
yes. And the second time I watch that movie, since I already understand what's going on in the movie, I would change it to an English subtitle, so I would know what the people are actually saying.
Okay, so first Japanese subtitles, second English subtitles.
Yes.
Okay.
And third time, or maybe even the second time, I will like pause the movie every time I see like the words I don't know, or if they're saying something and I really want to understand what they're saying, then I'll pause the movie and I'll just look up the words.
Okay.
to understand.
How would you look up the words? Would you use what?
Just Google Translation or any electric dictionary.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you look up idioms? Maybe people would say an expression like, "Oh, it's a dog day of summer" or something. Where dog day of summer? What does that mean? How would you look up expressions?
All Google. I would just Google the phrase and it'll pop up. Yeah.
So how much time and energy did you invest in doing this when you watched movies?
Well, I think my senior year in high school, I used to watch movie every single day. So I probably spent 2 hours, 3 hours each day.
Okay,
Yeah.
2 to 3 hours, everybody. That's a lot. So that every day. Okay. Wow. Plus your schoolwork.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. That's very important. Was there any other way that you practiced?
Well, I love watching the movie, so sometimes if I watch my favorite scene, I'll pause and then go back and play it again and then try to copy what the actor or actress is saying.
Okay, so you would role play
Yes.
the parts. Okay. Wow, that's very important. Yeah. The other thing I want to ask you, your pronunciation is very good.
Thank you.
For someone who didn't really have any exposure to other languages. So, I mean, you didn't have anybody speaking to you in English as a child. How did you master the pronunciation?
I think most of them are from just singing English songs and copying the sounds as I watched the movie or YouTube blogs.
Did you watch people's mouths? Was that important?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So when the singers were singing, you were really focusing on their mouth or the words?
Probably not the songs, but especially movie or YouTube blogs, I can see their mouth and it was easier for me to understand what they're saying
Okay,
too.
so you did watch their mouths. It was
Yes.
important to do that. Oh, okay. Wow, that's very important. When you came to Lake Forest College here in the Chicago area, could you understand any English?
Not really. Well, I didn't really have an experience in speaking English, so I really had a hard time understanding what's going on, and especially the college level, taking an academic class was very hard because I didn't have rich vocabulary in English.
Did you find that the American class structure was very different from the Japanese class structure?
Yes. Well, in Japan, it's mainly just teacher talking and students just take notes and we just take exams. But in the US, we focus more on discussions and speaking of our thoughts. And if we're writing an essay, we'll focus on what we think instead of just giving an answer to.
Just repeating what the book said or what
Yeah.
the teacher said. Did the teachers grade your papers? If you had to write a paper, did you actually get a grade on it and receive it back?
Yes, probably in a week, or some teachers even get it back in 3 days
Oh, okay.
with feedback.
In the beginning, how were you nervous? Was that scary, or did you get a lot of assistance?
At first, well, in terms writing an essay or speaking in class, I found it really hard to come up with my own thoughts or reflect on what I think about this topic, because I never was trained to think of an opinion in Japanese education.
And
Because
express opinions?
yes.
Okay. My son said something similar. When he was in high school, I was in Japan, he was in America, and I called him and I said, "Oh, it must be so difficult because you don't know so many words. And so every paper you have to write means you have to look up all of the words." He said, "Mom, it's not just the words." He said, "They want me to think here."
Mhm.
So he said, "I didn't have to think in Japan." So that would really be hard, but you did it.
I made it, yeah.
What did you major in?
I majored in international relations.
Did you enjoy it?
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit about your experience at college in international relations?
So I majored in international relations, and I also had a minor in educational studies and African studies. So
African studies.
Yes.
Wow.
So even though I was learning about like international relations, politics, economics, like I had my focus on education and developing countries. It really opened my eyes. Like in Japan, we only talk about what's around us and like Japanese politics. But with the international relations major, I learned about how the politics in Europe or in Africa or in Latin America, I never learned that in Japan. No, like I really opened my eyes, and it really taught me a lot about like how the world works.
Did you have a chance to do a study abroad program while you were in the U.S.?
No, I actually tried to study abroad in Ghana as I did an African studies minor, but the program got canceled because of pandemic.
Mhm.
But I really wanted to go see the schools in Africa, so I just Googled Africa School Volunteer, and I found a nonprofit that's looking for a volunteer from anywhere in the world who can go there and teach at their primary school.
Wow. You're so brave. You went to Kenya. Wow.
Yeah, so I spent the summer in 2019 in a small village in Kenya, and I worked as a teacher at a primary school.
How was that experience?
It was great. It was eye-opening. Well, Japan and the U.S. they're both rich countries, but in Kenya, their life was still different. It really opened my eyes to like see just a different culture, different people, different lifestyle. Yeah, it was an amazing experience.
Wow. You're so brave. Wow. What advice would you give to any Japanese students who really wanted to become a fluent English speaker?
I would say finding a connection between what you love and English.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to spend a lot of time like watching movies and studying English because I just loved watching movies, or I just loved listening to music. But I think if you like try to like actually study like writing and reading, like it's not gonna last.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can connect English to what you love to do, for example, it could be a baseball game, and you can just watch a baseball game YouTube video or YouTube vlog about baseball in English, then you can learn English at the same time, and you can have fun.
So, what would you say for people who hate English, but they need to practice it?
I would say put yourself in a situation where you have to use English. So it could be anything, like just make one friend who speaks English, or maybe go visit an English-speaking country for like 2 weeks, just have an exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will have to use English, and you have to practice English. Just make it an opportunity for yourself where you can practice English.
So you have to exert yourself, and you have to put yourself in a position that's a little uncomfortable.
It could be, yes.
You have to be brave. How important was practice?
Well, practice is everything. Well, if I didn't study abroad in the US, like my English hasn't gotten this better, probably. So I think just speaking, and even if you make mistakes, just try to speak, and yeah, you get there.
Well, what was your experience in college in America? Was it positive or so-so, or great, or?
Well, being a student and just like learning academics, being in an academic environment in English, well, when I didn't know English, it was pretty hard. But I also enjoyed a lot, and I just loved meeting people from all over the world. Our school had a lot of international students from many different countries, and just getting to talk with them, getting to know them, and getting to know their culture, it was amazing.
Yeah. Just explain a little bit. The college that Tina went to is called a liberal arts college. It's a small college, about 1,600 students. And the classes are small, maybe 15 to 20 students per class. Students get to spend time with the professors if you want to, right? The
Yes,
professors know who
yes.
you are.
I received a lot of help from my professors.
And they have all kinds of events and support, especially for international students. I think Japan does the same thing for international students. As an adult now, what impact has English had on your life, being a fluent English speaker now? What opportunities does that give you that you wouldn't have if you didn't speak English?
It definitely changed my whole life. If I didn't speak English, I probably still lived in Japan, just work a regular job. But now I live in the U.S. and I got married, and I also work in the U.S. Building a career and just speaking English. So
You just bought your first new house.
it did.
What would you like to say to Japanese parents whose children are thinking about going to another country for college?
Just support them as much as possible and let them chase their dreams and passion. My parents let me go to the U.S. and go to Kenya by myself, and I think that's very brave for my parents. Like, if I had kids who's a teenager, I don't know if I want to say, I don't know if I'm going to allow them to go to Africa by themselves, but if I go to Kenya as a teenager by myself, I learned a lot from that experience, and that really changed my life. And that's a really valuable experience that I can have in my life. So,
Well, I think in your daily life in America, what are the biggest differences that you see between your friends in Japan and your life here in America now? Your friends back in Japan and your life here?
if I talk about people around me, and people are generally open-minded, and they know a lot about what's going on in the world. They're more exposed to the whole world, not just the U.S., but they know about what's going on in different countries. But in Japan, I feel like people are more close-minded, and they don't really know about what's going on in a different country, or they don't really know about politics, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, you've been a great help to many people who might be wanting to learn English. So one more time, just what is the key for your English success? What was just paraphrase one more time, what was the most important thing you did to help you become a fluent English speaker?
Well, the first important thing is connecting what you love to English. Or for me, it was watching movies, listening to music, and then connecting that to English. And second most important thing is just try to practice as much as possible. Instead of reading and writing, spend more time in speaking and listening to English.
Well, thank you very much. It's been wonderful interviewing you, and I really appreciate you doing this, sacrificing your climbing time. So out the window here, you can see all the people climbing. How often do you come climbing?
I climb every other day.
Afterwards.
I just come straight to climbing after work.
Watch Tina's YouTube video about her experience volunteering in Kenya.
You can find the link in the description below.